I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network, and this is a breaking news alert. Kash Patel, who was a former top Trump administration official in the Defense Department and currently inextricably linked to the MAGA extremist movement and an election denier, has officially testified before the criminal grand jury in Washington, D.C. that is investigating Donald Trump's theft of thousands of government records, including some of our nation's most highly guarded secrets, including information about the nuclear programs of at least one other country, Iran's missile program, and the military capabilities of China, just to name a few of the types of documents that sources have revealed were obtained in the search warrant executed at Mar-a-Lago back on August 8th. You may recall that Kash Patel was previously called to testify before the criminal grand jury in Washington, D.C. Back on October 13th, when he was called to testify, he pled the fifth over and over again. Thereafter, the Department of Justice went to the federal judge overseeing the criminal grand jury. That judge is named Beryl Howell. They argued to Beryl Howell that the information they were seeking would not be necessarily incriminating to Kash Patel and that he should be compelled to testify. The judge disagreed and said that it probably would be incriminating to Kash Patel. And so what she ordered upon the Department of Justice's request is to grant Kash Patel something called use immunity, meaning that he would be compelled to testify before the grand jury. He could not invoke the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination because under use immunity, the Department of Justice cannot use anything that Kash Patel says before the grand jury in that compelled testimony to criminally prosecute him, nor could the Department of Justice use anything derived from the statements that he makes, particularly at that grand jury testimony that he's compelled to testify, to then prosecute him based on what is derived from what he said. Still, with use immunity, the Department of Justice can still prosecute Kash Patel based on things that they've obtained from independent sources, information from independent sources that they've received about Kash Patel's potential criminal conduct. And this differs from what's called transactional immunity, where an individual is granted immunity for the entire crime, regardless of whether it comes from an independent source or whether it is derived from the testimony that is given with the immunity that is granted. One thing to mention, though, for both transactional immunity and use immunity, and we should just focus on use immunity because that's what's being granted here. If Kash Patel commits perjury in his compelled testimony, he can be charged with the crime of perjury and be prosecuted for that. And the reason that he will be compelled to testify, and he can't say, no, I'm not going to testify. If he refuses to testify, he would be held in contempt. But there is no longer the fear of self-incrimination based on the immunity grant that is given. And Kash Patel did indeed testify, and he was asked a number of questions about Donald Trump's theft of these government records. So why is Kash Patel being questioned? Well, he's inextricably intertwined with Donald Trump's theft of these records. Kash Patel was actually appointed by Donald Trump after Trump was defeated in the 2020 election to be his representative to communicate with the National Archives. And it seems that really no communication there took place at all. But one of the things that Kash Patel did as well, in addition to being an election denier, in addition to being placed by the Trump administration to be the chief of staff to the Secretary of Defense to try to stop the peaceful transition of power. But after Trump was defeated, Kash Patel gave a number of interviews to right-wing media, including Breitbart, where he stated in these media interviews that he was there and he has knowledge that Trump declassified all of these records and that Trump declassified very specific records relating to our national security and relating to Russia. And there's a specific interview that Kash Patel gave with Breitbart on May 5th where he lays this out. And Kash Patel blames the lawyers at the White House and blames government bureaucrats for not following through on Trump's telepathic declassification orders. You really can't make this stuff up, but he tells the right-wing extremist media this stuff. Now, a number of people in Trump's administration have been asked about whether Trump declassified these records or had a standing order to declassify these records. And anyone with a scintilla of credibility, which is hard if you worked for Trump, but anyone with a scintilla of credibility said absolutely not. There was no standing order to declassify. You can't declassify things telepathically. There's paperwork that needs to be filed for declassification. And how dangerous would it be if you were actually declassifying our nation's highest secrets without telling the people who are referenced, or the entities or institutions and groups that are referenced in these documents? I mean, you're literally putting a bullseye on their head to be killed and captured by our foreign enemies, and you're revealing our sources and methods which protect all of us Americans and are vital to our national security interests. And so this is what Kash Patel said in a May 5th Breitbart interview. He said, quote, "The White House counsel, they failed to generate the paperwork to change the classification markings, but that doesn't mean the information wasn't declassified. I was there with President Trump when he said we are declassifying this information. This story is just another disinformation campaign designed to break the public trust in Donald Trump." And then he goes on to say, "The story says the National Archives found the documents had classifications markings on it. That doesn't mean they were not declassified. All previously classified documents have classification markings on them. It shows they used to be classified. This is just petty bureaucracy at its finest. Government simpletons not following a president's orders to have them marked declassified. The president has unilateral authority to declassify documents, anything in the government." And then he goes on to say, literally, he's quoted as saying that it's information. What Trump tried to declassify, or claims he did declassify, is information that Trump felt spoke to matters regarding everything from Russia and Ukraine and major national, literally says, to major national security matters of great public importance. Now, it's an important thing also to take a step back here and note that the crimes Trump is being investigated for the theft of these government records has nothing to do with whether documents were classified or declassified. No one is above the law, and you can't steal the government's and then retroactively declassify it or telepathically declassify it, or even if you did declassify it, which he didn't, we know he didn't, but you can't steal those records and hide them and conceal it and then obstruct efforts to get it back. So declassification really here isn't at issue, but what this does show, and why the DOJ is so focused on Kash Patel, is it really goes to Trump's intent. And to the extent Trump tries to make the argument, oh, this is just a miscommunication or a records keeping issue that we had, what Kash Patel is saying here directly rebuts it, because it was obvious that these documents that were stolen were very specifically and intentionally handpicked by Trump because they involved issues that he wanted to be in control of when he was no longer in the government, and to use that for his own benefit and for his own purpose and for whatever other transactional uses he may have for it that would imperil us here in the United States of America. And so all of this goes to intent. Now, before the special grand jury, or rather just the grand jury, it's not a special grand jury, before the grand jury investigating, I guess you could suppose you can say it's special because it finally involves a former president, but before the criminal grand jury in Washington, D.C. investigating these crimes, Kash Patel was called. He was asked these questions, At this stage, we don't yet have the answers to them, but we do know that he answered the questions. And so whether he's going to say that he lied to Breitbart, or what he told Breitbart was the truth, or whether he was making it up, or whatever, we will have those answers. And if it turns out that he lies before the grand jury, he can be charged with the crime of perjury, and we will ultimately see what it is that he told the grand jury. But this shows that the Department of Justice is moving aggressively. I mean, literally within days. You remember my report the other day where I talked about Kash Patel being granted this use immunity, and I described what derivative use immunity is and compared it with transactional immunity, which you now know, and I reiterated and reinforced it here. But shortly thereafter, I mean, within about a day of that, this week, use immunity testifies right away. And that shows that the Department of Justice is moving quickly, is moving very expeditiously on this. They brought one of their top terrorist prosecutors, or terrorism prosecutors and national security prosecutors, someone by the name of David Raskin, has joined the team. The DOJ has brought a number of other top prosecutors. Many have left lucrative jobs at private law firms where they made a lot of money to join this DOJ team right now that is investigating Trump, because the DOJ recognizes that serious crimes were committed here. And, you know, if you just take one more step back for a second and say, how shocking and disturbing is it that you have a political party, which is now the MAGA Republican Party, which literally supports the theft of top secret records and classified records in the hands of a lunatic, in the hands of a criminal, in the hands of a cult leader in Donald Trump, that they accept that. So much so that they just today as well released this weird report that they said was 1,000-page report, but it was really just 1,000 pages of letters that they sent to Biden where they quoted themselves as their own source of the information, where they talked about they attacked the FBI and claimed the FBI is way too focused on domestic extremism here and are inflating the domestic extremist numbers here in the United States. And you have the MAGA Republicans want to repeal the Espionage Act. They want to repeal the law that we could prosecute people for espionage under. So they want to eliminate the FBI, repeal the Espionage Act, in essence, completely defund and abolish the police, the Espionage Act, all of that. Because here, Donald Trump stole nuclear secrets. He stole top secret records. He stole government records, concealed it for nearly a 2-year period, lied about it, had lawyers submit declarations to the FBI saying documents were returned when they weren't. You have all of that. And the Republican Party goes, yeah, that's what we support. I mean, it is just so Putin-esque, Kim Jong-un-esque. This is what what fascism looks like. That's what authoritarianism looks like. There is no law and order. It's pure allegiance to the cult leader. And I am glad that we have a law and order Department of Justice engaged in this investigation, period, bar none. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. We will update you as soon as we know what Kash Patel said during this testimony. We will keep you updated, apprised there. Hit the subscribe button now. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to you. It's free to subscribe. So if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? If you're new to watching this, check out all our other videos. They're all as good as this. So hit the subscribe button right now. And in addition, please join our Patreon membership at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. There's a number of membership packages there with exclusive content, behind-the-scenes footage, exclusive podcasts, exclusive Q&As, exclusive merch drops, and so much more. But most importantly, wherever you are in the world where you say, what can I do to help grow this independent media network? I love this independent media network. What can I do to help grow it? That's what you can do. It goes a long way to help. No worries if you can't. No matter what, share these videos, like them, do all of that, subscribe. If you can help, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. That's patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
MeidasTouch is unapologetically pro-democracy. And look, we know you are too. So please make sure you check out our best-selling shirt and our best-selling gear, the unapologetically pro-democracy gear. And hey, while you're at it, make sure you check out my favorite shirt and one of our most famous designs, It Wasn't Rigged, You're Just a Loser, at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.